Okay, good afternoon. Before we begin today, I have a question for you. How many of you like to discuss controversial issues with your friends, family, or coworkers? Raise your hand if you really like to discuss controversial issues. Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of people. Okay, anybody who just raised their hand, can you tell me what usually happens when you start talking about a really controversial topic with someone? Who wants to tell me what happens? Is it a nice, easy conversation? How many of you would say, like, yeah, it's usually a pretty easy conversation. We have a nice exchange of ideas, and if we don't agree, we just simply say, that's okay. It's okay if we don't agree. Is that the way your conversations usually go?
It's very noisy.
It's very noisy, okay. Okay, so it's usually a little noisy. Why is it noisy?
Because we don't have the same meanings in these questions with my family especially.
Oh, with your family, yeah, I have that too. Yes.
Sometimes we don't hear each other.
That's an excellent point, because I think you hear each other, but maybe you're not listening, right? Maybe you're not listening to each other. That's an excellent point. Does it ever get like so tense that maybe you just have to stop the conversation? Sometimes? Yeah, okay. So this is an issue in a democracy, because in a democracy, we are allowed to express our views. And we're allowed to have different opinions. So there are times that we have to talk about our views, especially if we're going to be engaged in public issues and societal issues. So today we're going to do an activity that's designed to help us think about ways that we can really listen to people who have maybe very different points of view than our own, and maybe even learn from them. Okay? So the activity we're doing today is called a human continuum. And the way this activity is going to work is I'm going to give you a statement, and then I'm going to ask you how you feel about the statement. And you'll notice up here I have the words strongly disagree, and all the way down on this end I have strongly agree. But I have them at opposite ends for a reason. A continuum means that it's a line going from one side to the other, and it means that there's all different points along that line that could represent different points of view. So for instance, if I was standing right about here, maybe I am completely undecided. Maybe I partially agree and I partially disagree, so I'm here. But on the other hand, maybe I agree, but not strongly, so I would stand here. Okay? So what I want you to do is open up your notebooks and take your pen and just draw a line. And think about maybe on one end put an SA for strongly agree, and on the other end put an SD for strongly disagree. Now, when I say my statement to you, what I want you to do is think about where on that line you just drew. Where would you mark yourself in the spot that represents how you really feel? And then I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to think about, why do I feel that way? And really what I'd like you to come up with is any examples that you have, any maybe statistics or evidence that you know of, something you read, anything at all that you can write down to think about that you can explain to us when you defend your view. Okay? So what will happen after that is you will literally get up and come over here and position yourself on the line, and then I'll ask you to explain why you're positioned where you are. Okay? There's a few rules we need to discuss, because if we're really talking about civility, we don't want to yell at each other, right? No matter how much you disagree with someone's point of view, we don't yell at anybody. We don't name call. We don't tell them they're wrong. You're really just sharing your point of view. So you state your own point of view. You listen carefully to others. And every once in a while, I'll ask you, does anybody want to change their position? And that's fine. Sometimes when you hear something, you realize, I didn't think about that before. So it's fine to say, yeah, I'm going to change my position. Maybe just a little. Maybe I'm just going to go this much. But that's fine. Okay? So remember, no name calling, no yelling, only one person speaks at a time. And by the way, you also only speak, each person speaks once. Okay? You're listening really carefully to each other, and you're thinking about, do your views change? Okay? All right, so here's my statement for you. There should be no limits to freedom of speech. So your question now is, do I strongly agree, strongly disagree, or am I somewhere in the middle, and why? The statement is, there should be no limits to freedom of speech. So after you marked your spot, remember, just write down a few reasons why. They're not anything, I'm not going to read it, that's just for you to collect your thoughts so that you're ready to share your reasoning when you get on the line. "30 seconds more. Okay, and just finish up whatever your last idea was. All right, so now I'm going to ask you to put your pens down. And you all know where you positioned yourself, so try to visualize it now. Remember, strongly disagree, strongly agree. And get up and, 1 second, you're going to walk over there. Now, if a lot of you have the exact same view, you're going to be clustered together. So I'm going to ask some of you, like, are you really in this position? Maybe you don't so strongly agree. And then if you really are all sharing the same view, I'll ask you to line up one behind the other, just so there's room for everyone. Okay? So go ahead. Sometimes it might happen that most of your students share a similar view. In that case, you have to be ready to play devil's advocate. So I will present an argument that is a strongly disagree, and maybe I'll even persuade some of you. But let's get started. First of all, are you in the middle? You lean more this way? Okay. You're leaning that way. Okay, wow. All right, so I'd like to start all the way at this end. So the person who thinks they're the most strongly aligned with, strongly agree. So why are you positioned where you are?
Okay, I think that this is a way in which I can be free and independent, and I don't want to scare of something in this world, and I want to have my own meaning, and I want to make my own rules in this world.
Okay. Somebody else who's way down on that side, can you share your views?
Maybe I think that we need this freedom because we should be sure that we won't be punished for our opinion, for our words. Like we can say that our government is illegal or do something wrong, and we won't be sent in the prison, for example, or something like this.
Okay, very good. So we've heard two views that really represent this very extreme, strongly agree position. So now we're going to hear from you. You're the closest we have to a strongly disagree. Why are you positioned there?
I think that it's very dangerous to have no limits, because in each case, in every case, you will be punished because of your thoughts. Because some people think that it's green, and some people think that it's red, and you will never find a consensus.
Consensus, yeah.
Yeah, so it's very, very dangerous, I think.
Okay. I'm going to also offer some things to think about on this end. So I'm going to position myself here, and I'm going to share, I really disagree. I think we have to have limits on freedom of expression, because if we didn't have limits, or freedom of speech, if we didn't have limits, people could just say anything they wanted. They could lie about people in public office. They could print fake news stories and we would never know if it was true or not. So I think it's really, really important that we have standards that say this speech is acceptable, this speech is protected, but sometimes speech can't be protected. Like another example might be speech that's really hateful and that's designed to get people to like attack other humans and kill other people. And I think we really need to say that speech can't be protected. So my argument is that we do have to have some limits to freedom of speech. So, now I step back out here. So I just represented that view. So we've heard two opposite views. So before we hear more people, does anybody want to change their position at all? Ooh, we have a little bit of movement. Okay. Okay, so would you like to explain why you moved?
To my mind, it depends on type of these limits. Sometimes I really want to feel myself freedom at all, but I understand that my words can't punish someone, so that's why it depends on types of these limits.
Okay, thank you very much. You also moved your position. Can you explain why?
I'm agree with that, but not totally, because sometimes we have some information that can be forbidden or bad or secret information, and this can create some problem for our society, and that's all.
Okay, excellent point. So, we still have a lot of you who you agree, but not fully. Who would like to explain why you're positioned here?
Maybe I'm not in the right side, because totally in the right, because not all information have to be representation. How you know it's secret, it's bad information, but you must have a freedom for expressing your opinion.
Okay. Luke, did you want to share?
I'm not all the way on this side because there should be some sort of limits, but at the same time, I don't want to be all the way on the other side, because there's a reason why people have expression. There's a reason why the protests are important. Like we have like so many Ukrainians has a lot of protests, and there's a reason why they're important, and there's a reason why it's important to express yourself. At the same time, as long as you're not committing violence, as long as you're not restricting other people at a point that it's prohibiting them from expressing their opinion, that's also something to consider as well.
Okay, good point. I'm going to give you some examples now of when speech is sometimes limited, and you're going to decide whether or not you strongly agree, disagree, or somewhere in between. So one example is if there was a crowded movie theater. Every seat in the movie theater is filled. It's a very large theater. And somebody stands up in the middle and starts screaming, "Fire! Fire!" And everybody starts scrambling to get out of the theater. And people get hurt, people get stepped on. And later people say to that individual, "You shouldn't have done that." And they say, freedom of speech. Should we allow that kind of action to be protected by freedom of speech? Decide on the line. Do you strongly agree? Yes, we should allow it. You strongly disagree, or you're somewhere in between. If you need to move, please move. Wait 1 second. I see a little bit of movement, a little bit going this way, but most of you are still staying where you are. You're going to move? Okay, go ahead, move.
We agree that it...
You agree, you strongly disagree that kind of speech should be allowed. So if you agree, then you're here. Okay, so we have more people now shifting this way. You're still in your original position? Okay, do you want to explain why?
First of all, I want to say that I truly believe that each person deserves to express their thoughts and their position freely, but we have to remember one of the main nature laws, that every action has a reaction. So just talking about anything, you have to remember that in any way you will get an answer to your words, and just your image. It depends on life position you represent.
I saw quite a few people move this way, and you were very extreme. You moved a little. Do you want to explain why?
Yeah, Ken. I think that we should talk about normal society and normal people, which are well known what they're doing. And if people do something like this and screaming fire, fire, and if there is no fire, I think they are quite strange and abnormal, and they need to go for a doctor maybe. And I talk about normal society, just for all.
Okay, but so in that instance, though, you would say that person shouldn't have that right. Okay, I'm going to give one more statement and see if anyone else wants to move, and then I'll let a few last people share. So my last statement is, you're all university students. You know what happens sometimes when young people have a fight. So let's say there's a very bad breakup between a boy and a girl, and the girl starts putting all these messages on social media, saying all these awful things about the man, that he's a liar, he's a cheater, he steals from people, and she's lying. She's making up bad stories, putting it on social media. And his employer finds out and fires him. Can she say, free speech, I can say whatever I want? How many of you would strongly agree in that case she should have freedom of speech? Or how many of you disagree that in that case there should be limits on her freedom of expression? Okay, so tell me why you're not moving. The people here who haven't shared yet. Why do you still feel you strongly agree that they're... Oh, no, we have someone moving. So you would support some limits in this case?
It's private information, and it should be safe. Message and photos, it's very private, and we can't to show it for other people.
Okay, thank you. Before we end the activity, is there anybody who did not yet get to share why they're positioned where they are and you'd like to give your reason? I think there's only maybe two. Yes?
I think man can also tell something similar. It's normal because people have a lot of opinion, but its opinion also can be not too correct, but it's also opinion.
Okay. Anybody else want to share their opinion or their view who was not able to? Yes?
Maybe man can prove that he is innocent, so it's just lie or he can go to the court, use judge and protect himself from this woman.
But if he's protecting himself through a court, then aren't you saying the judge could say to the woman, you must stop saying that?
Maybe yes.
Well, then that means that there should be limits on her speech.
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to move a little bit. Okay, very good. Okay, so this is the last chance to share your view if you have not yet shared. Perfect. So now, anybody who changed their position at all may sit down. If you never changed your position, please stay standing. Okay, so now we see all the people who had some change of view and the two people who did not. And now you may sit down. Thank you. Thank you. So I would like for you to think for a couple of minutes, what did you learn by doing this activity? And for the teachers, at this time, you could allow students to talk in small groups, or they could individually write, or you can give them a few minutes just to think. But it's really important that they have some time to process so they can review the activity and think about what did they really learn? What was the meaning of this activity for them? So I'm going to give you a minute to think about that. If you'd like to, you can write it down, but in 1 minute, we'll talk as a group. Okay, so where should we begin? Who would like to tell me what you learned by doing this activity? Yes.
It's very hard to listen to someone else. It's like when you think something and someone says another thought, and you just feel this.
Yeah, that's a really good point. How many people felt that? That it's just hard sometimes. Like you have your own belief. Yeah, that's a very good point. What else did people learn? Why is it problematic for society that people have a tendency to just hold on to their view and not really try to listen to other perspectives? Why is that a problem? Or do you think it's a problem?
First of all, as you say, it depends on people and their point of views and they believe in, and every person have own meaning, and it's hard. Like say our colleagues said, we can listen this, and I think that is every situation have its own problematic and own questions to discuss.
To conclude, I can say that in any situation, no matter who you are, you just cannot be completely confident that you are right and your position is closer to the truth than any other.
Did you say you can be or you can't be?
Cannot.
You cannot be. Do you agree with that? That you should always have a little bit of room for, yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Yes?
If there is no capability of wanting to groom or change your mind even a little bit, then you can't have reform, you can't be able to cooperate, you're not going to be able to move forward and have any sort of progress in any society. You have to be able to kind of give in, so even just a little bit.
Excellent point. And I think that's something we have to think about very seriously. If we want this opportunity in a democracy to express our own views, but if all everyone is doing is expressing their own view and nobody's ever listening to each other, what's going to happen? Fight. Yes, it's going to be chaos. So that's very important. So our last comment, yes.
I'm just going to say that we can be strongly disagree or strongly agree in every situation.
You can be.
Yeah, can't.
Can't be.
Yes.
Okay, you're right. Most of us fall somewhere in the middle. I agree, because most of us are willing to have some open mind about a topic. Okay, excellent. Well, I hope that this activity has really got you to start thinking about this topic of free speech and how even though we have these rights in a democracy, there might be times when government needs to pass laws that set some limits on our rights. So just because we live in a democracy, it does not mean that we have unlimited rights or unlimited freedoms. So that's the idea that I wanted to introduce today, and we will continue to explore this idea when we meet next time. So thank you.